A young Irish mother, clutching her child tightly, stands on the rocky shores of her homeland. Behind her lies a once vibrant countryside, now a wasteland of barren fields and empty cottages. Ahead stretches the open sea, a passage fraught with peril aboard a crowded, disease-ridden ship. For her and millions like her, this journey represents not just the hope of survival, but the heartbreak of leaving behind everything she has ever known. This was the grim reality for countless Irish families during the Great Potato Famine of 1845 to 1852, a catastrophe that not only decimated Ireland, but also reshaped the world, particularly the United States. This story is not just history, it's a lived experience of displacement, injustice, and resilience. The famine was not merely the result of a failed potato crop, it was the culmination of systemic exploitation. For generations, Ireland's rural farming families relied on the potato as their primary food source. This wasn't by choice, but by necessity, imposed by a colonial system that reduced them to tenants on their own land. The potato thrived in small plots, enabling large families to subsist, while nearly all other crops and livestock were siphoned off as rent to absentee landlords in Britain. When the potato blight struck, it upended this fragile balance. The blight destroyed not only a crop, but the very foundation of survival for millions of Irish people. Hunger soon turned to starvation, and starvation to death. The British government's response exacerbated the crisis, offering minimal aid that came with harsh conditions, requiring people to renounce their Catholic faith or abandon their land in exchange for food. As the Irish starved, ships laden with grain and livestock continued to leave Irish ports for British markets. This was the displacing effect, a natural disaster compounded by systemic injustice. The famine didn't just destroy lives, it tore apart communities, forcing many to make the agonizing choice to leave their homeland. For those who chose emigration, the journey was anything but a reprieve. Entire families scraped together what little they had to secure passage aboard coffin ships so named for their appalling conditions. Overcrowding, malnutrition, and disease turned these vessels into floating death traps, where mortality rates often exceeded 20%. Yet, despite the risks, the alternative, to remain and face certain starvation, was worse. When Irish migrants landed in cities like Boston, New York, and Philadelphia, they were met with hostility. Signs reading "No Irish Need Apply" dotted shop windows, reflecting widespread anti-immigrant sentiment. The Irish were seen as poor, unskilled, and undesirable, a drain on resources, or in the wake of cholera outbreaks, even a public health threat. But the Irish brought something far more enduring than the prejudices they faced, an unyielding sense of community, a shared Catholic faith, and a fierce determination to survive. In crowded tenement neighborhoods, they built support networks, pooling resources to help new arrivals find housing and work. These enclaves, while beset with poverty and hardship, became the foundations of enduring Irish-American communities. Despite the challenges, Irish immigrants began to forge a path from survival to success. Through sheer persistence and solidarity, they transformed their circumstances and left an indelible mark on the United States. Laboring in some of the most grueling jobs, building canals, railroads, and bridges, they contributed to the nation's industrial rise. Their struggles for fair wages and decent working conditions helped lay the groundwork for American labor movements. Politically, the Irish leveraged their numbers and communal bonds to gain influence. Organizations like Tammany Hall, initially a lifeline for new immigrants, evolved into powerful political machines that shaped urban governance. Over generations, Irish Americans rose to prominent positions in politics, business, and culture. Culturally, the Irish enriched the American tapestry. Their music, dance, and storytelling traditions became cherished parts of American life, while St. Patrick's Day celebrations grew into a nationwide phenomenon. The Irish experience of displacement and resilience resonated across other immigrant communities, symbolizing the possibilities of the American dream. The story of the Irish potato famine is not just a historical account. It is a living lesson about the consequences of inequality, the resilience of displaced communities, and the moral imperative to extend compassion to those in need. The struggles of Irish immigrants in the 19th century echo in today's world, where millions are forced to flee famine, war, climate change, and systemic oppression. Consider the Syrian mother crossing dangerous waters in search of refuge for her children, or the family in Central America fleeing gang violence and extreme poverty, risking everything to reach the US border. Like the Irish of the 19th century, these modern migrants face treacherous journeys, hostile reception in host countries, and daunting barriers to integration. They too are accused of being drains on resources or threats to society, yet history has shown us time and again that these narratives of fear and exclusion fail to recognize the enduring contributions of immigrant communities. The Irish experience offers us crucial lessons. First, it underscores the profound interconnectedness of displacement and systemic injustice. The famine was not solely an ecological disaster. It was compounded by political neglect and economic exploitation. Similarly, many of today's migration crises are not just the result of immediate catastrophes, but long-standing inequalities and failures of governance. Second, the Irish story reminds us of the transformative power of resilience and community. Despite immense hardship, Irish immigrants built strong support networks, contributed immeasurably to their host societies, and forged a new cultural identity that enriched the nations they joined. This resilience is a testament to the human spirit, and it challenges us to see migrants not as burdens, but as individuals with the potential to shape and strengthen our communities. Finally, the Irish experience calls us to reflect on the moral obligations of host nations. In the 19th century, the United States offered a lifeline, however imperfect, to Irish immigrants. Today, as we face new waves of migration, we must decide whether we will rise to meet the challenge with empathy and support, or succumb to fear and exclusion. When we look back at the Irish mother standing on the shore, we see more than her individual plight. We see the shared humanity that transcends time and place. Her story is a call to action, urging us to embrace empathy over indifference and to recognize that the strength of a society is measured not by how it treats the privileged, but by how it welcomes and uplifts the most vulnerable. If we carry forward the lessons of the Irish potato famine, we can honor the past while building a future where no family, no matter their origin, faces the same despair without hope. Because in their journey, we see the reflections of our own, the universal struggle for dignity, survival, and the chance to create a better tomorrow.